Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, the weekend show, and happy to say that it's actually happening on the weekend. So we're getting back on track just before the end of the year. So as you can see, both of us pretty wrapped up quite well, so no prizes for the location. Lovely to see you, mate. At least it's looking nice and bright out there today.
Good morning, Chris. Yep, beautiful Saturday morning here in London. It's blue sky, sunshine, but I suspect that looks are deceiving, and it's probably bitterly cold. So I haven't ventured outside just yet.
Aren't they just, mate? And listen, on that note, and there's a subject that I want to talk to you about, but something with a little bit of a twist on it this week, because I received something from a listener, and I've actually really enjoyed going through it. And yeah, the topic is that ground handling inefficiencies now are getting to a level where it's causing, especially air cargo, certain congestion points and slowing growth. But it's a worrying trend that seems to be continuing. Now, before we get stuck into that subject matter, somebody sent in, they said they'd prefer not to be named, but they sent something in. It's called the moral DNA of managers. So what he said was, I've heard the two of you talking back and forth and blah, blah, blah. And he said, I'd like to know which one do you think you are? Now, the categories, the 6 categories are philosophers, judges, angels, teachers, enforcers, or guardians. Okay. Now, the reason he sent it to me is because we cover, and I'm sorry to everybody who does listen, I probably go on about it too much, but this care concept, and there's a statement in here that actually what it does is it compares managers' performance or managers' traits to the same traits in the general population. So the one statement that he's put here, and he's actually highlighted, is, as a result, there are significantly more people in management roles, plus 20, who lack empathy when making decisions, failing to consider the impact of their choices on the well-being and interests of groups like customers, stakeholders, and staff. Conversely, there are less than half as many people managing who have a strong ethic of care, 14% of managers, compared to 36% of the general population. Now, to tell you what the ethic of care stands for, firstly, it has love next to it, okay? Then it says, this ethic is based on our experience and expectation that well-being, both for the individual and for the group, will result from making decisions based on empathy. We argue that the ethic of care is crucial to the sustainability of any human community. It is crucial to real engagement with all stakeholders in any enterprise and in economic terms. It is crucial to the fair distribution of scarce resource. However, our evidence strongly suggests that the ethic of care is widely suppressed or ignored in the corporate workforce. Excuse me. So
sounding a bit like Joe Biden there this morning, Chris.
What, with the cough or the
frog in the throat?
Yeah, frog. Yeah, I tell you, it's just come on now. I'll be taking a lateral test shortly because I was going to watch a game of rugby, so I have to take my test first.
That's very responsible of you, Chris.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Always there, always
caring for others. You see what we did there?
A little bit of poetry as well, mate. Anyhow, but the 10 values that they quote, which I also thought were really good, which is wisdom, fairness, courage, self-control, trust, hope, humility, love, honesty, and excellence. And now back to the point that he also wanted to make was, as you get older, okay, your work reason, your work care, and your work obedience all change. And the work obedience drops with age, mainly meaning that you don't pay so much attention to specific SOPs or procedures because of experience or better judgment, etc. Whereas the younger generation, or those that are, a junior person may well lack the autonomy of experience in their job to choose anything other than what their job description says. And we've spoken so many times about job descriptions being hung all over the place, for whichever viewpoint you need to have at whatever point. It does relate a little bit to where we are today. So I thought it was a lovely little thing to send in. I really appreciate it. I've already replied, so the gentleman knows exactly what my feelings are. Well done. Really, really love it. But to answer the question, without knowing fully what the interpretation of those 6 terms are, which one would you nail your character to? Philosopher, judge, angel, teacher, enforcer, or guardian? And once you name it, I will reveal what it is that it refers to you to.
Well, I'd like if we put 2 of those together, one becomes a guardian angel, which I think is always very.
Oh, Stephen, that was nice, mate.
Well, I mean, we've all got, I guess, speaking a little bit philosophically now, we've all got a guardian angel, or somebody that looks over us, or somebody that relates to us, maybe that's not here now, and I think that's interesting. But look, Chris, you know that I'm not somebody to stick people in boxes. Therefore, I'm certainly not going to stick oneself in a box. I think it's important, and so this might sound a sort of political answer, but it's important that each of us and each of the leaders are a little bit of everything across what I believe those meanings to be. Certainly in the coaching and advisory sort of functions, teacher needs to sort of boil through first. If you're in the compliance and audit functions, which we both have been, then the judge needs to maybe sort of be there first. Bringing on young talent into the industry, and being a bit of an angel and supporting people that maybe have had a few, been to the school of hard knocks, and giving them a bit of a helping hand is right and proper. So I'm not sure that I would describe myself in any one thing. But if it is if I was forced, if you forced my hand behind my back, I'd probably go into the judge category. Why? Because I believe in fairness, I believe in equality, I believe in equilibrium, and I believe in balance. And that's what I believe the judicial system does. Is it recognizes failures, but it provides avenues for correction through corrective institutions. It doesn't always, use the lock and key or the powers at their disposal to throw the book at people. And I don't think that's what judges do. So I think being a good judge of people, of character, of discipline, and of input is probably the best place that I would sit.
Very good, my friend. And just to let you know now, the 3 traits that are found more in management than in the general population are philosophers, judges, and enforcers. Okay, and a judge are good at solving really challenging dilemmas, but could lack empathy with others in making those tough calls. They ask, what would be the fair thing to do? They may sometimes bend the rules if they believe a higher principle is at stake. And 24% of managers surveyed are judges, compared with 15% of the general population.
Well, I hadn't read that, Chris, but without sort of blowing smoke up my backside, that was almost bob on. So yeah, I think that's a very, 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 very reasonable. I have to ask you now, of course, where you would sit.
I would sit, mate, again, probably a mix of judge and enforcer, I would say. And for those that want to know what enforcers are, remind everyone about their duty to obey the law. If the rules don't tell us what's right, then they'll think of the principle or spirit behind it. However, they may appear cold, lack empathy for others, and may sometimes forget that it's the principle that counts, not the letter of the law. But a balance in there. And for this, philosophers, obviously good at solving difficult, complex dilemmas, but will break the rules if they believe a higher principle is at stake. They ask what would be the honest or courageous thing to do. They may sometimes lack empathy for others when making rational decisions. But I really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. And, it's interesting to see, which is another important thing. Most of the dips in the 3 ethics happen between the age group of 36 to 46, which is amazing. It's really consistent. It's excellent. That's work reason, work care, and work obedience. And then the older you get, the work obedience drops off because, you tend to not want to follow strict guidelines. You want to use your experience and everything. Anyhow, that was just a little intro for this morning. And now on to the main subject matter before I cough or sneeze into the mic, which is groundhanded inefficiency, Steve, but generally across the board now, everywhere. I was out the other night in a lovely, lovely pub and restaurant, and people were coming in for what would have been the last sitting, and they were being told that they couldn't because there was only one chef on, and he was overworked and he wasn't feeling well and he had to go home.
Well, did you go hungry?
Sorry, no, I was in the earlier sitting, mate.
Well, you see, that's it. Well done. Early bird catches the worm, Chris. Yeah, I tend to find myself in the area sittings these days as well. Getting in for 6 and 6:30 for dinner is very reasonable. I used to go for dinner at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, but not nowadays. It's cold, wet, miserable, and dark outside. It's nice to be in bed by 9 o'clock at night. Look, indicative of a wider problem, I think, Chris. Not just in hospitality, but in all sectors.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere. Everywhere.
We have had full employment in this country for a while, and we have obviously now had flight of. I can't say it's caused by Brexit, because let's be clear, let's be honest. If COVID had not ravaged the hospitality sector in 2020. I doubt we would have seen the flight of a lot of European workers back to their home countries. That just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So people would happily say, "Oh, it's because of Brexit." It's not because of Brexit. That might suit your narrative, but the reality is that they went back to their country. They probably found a job now, and they're probably very happy rebuilding their lives and their livelihood and their family ties back in Italy or Poland or Slovakia or whatever they may well be. Of course, to bring new labour in now is the challenge. So there are some restrictions with that. I think the government has been working to improve that, but I think that's difficult because it won't go anytime soon. But it's the same in our sector. I mean, we can't even get workers into the ground handling business. We've been doing some work over the last few weeks for a client in Europe, and I have to say, trying to find 500 heads for ground handling for one station is a challenge that they are faced with. That's for one station, and that is the same, up and down the UK, as I'm sure it is across the rest of the world. So we know that is impacting logistics lines and supply chain, and the entire last mile kind of piece is now struggling to deliver to customers' expectations, and at a time when it's coming towards Christmas, Chris, where air cargo.
Desperately needed.
Busiest time of the year, and we've still got issues in Dubai, massive central logistics hub there, massive impact to airline customers and the end user consumer, where they just can't get enough people in to service the warehousing needs. Now, how that happened, I will pass. I will defer judgment on. It wouldn't be appropriate necessarily here, but this weekend we should, of course, also, Chris, be in Dubai at the Sevens, but we're not. We're in London. I'm not quite sure why that happened. Not quite sure why that happened. Talking of Dubai, but to finish that point before we go on to the Sevens and reminisce. Look, I do think that we need to probably look at the overall package that's on offer to people in industry. This is not just about dollars and cents or pounds and pennies in your pocket. It has to be more than that. It has to be about creating opportunity, developing opportunity, creating some level of excitement, some level of security of tenure, offering 6-month temporary contracts to bring people in to help, so pardon my phraseology, but to shovel up your shit that has been lying there for the last few months because you couldn't get people through the door, isn't going to entice people to come back to aviation. So I think with that, we have to get some more stability and some more certainty, and that can only come from government. It's got to stop from this nonsense fear culture that's been built by the press and the media again this week. Christmas is cancelled. No, it's not. You cannot cancel Christ's birthday. It's impossible. Stop with the nonsense. It really is getting on my goat.
Well, I was going to send you a nice big bunch of mistletoe, my friend, but even that has had
for a pash.
Yes, but the way they're talking about that as well now, huh?
Yeah.
How can serious politicians? That's what gets me. There was a couple of politicians, one male, one female, and they made such a big issue of controlled snogging, right, or oral activity, instead of talking about something that matters. For God's sake, do you know what I mean? I just find it amazing, Steve.
Yeah.
Hey? Controlled snogging. Good God Almighty.
Well, I think somebody gave it a run, and it got picked up, and then it ran with it all week. I mean, it was a tongue-in-cheek comment. Pardon the pun, tongue-in-mouth comment. But then it really, I mean, there was one. Adam Fleming, a journalist, used it on the BBC the other day. He said something about intimate oral something. And I was just going, what on earth? And then Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, the world's greatest city, started using that phraseology and says that he always gives us. I was thinking, stop.
I thought you were going to say the world's greatest mayor then.
I would not be saying that about Sadiq Khan.
I thought that's what you were going to say there.
I have to give Sadiq Khan credit though. This week on newscast, which comes after question time, which is normally way past my bedtime on a Thursday night at 23:45. He was on there with Adam Fleming and Laura Kunsberg and Chris Mason, and he was very complimentary of the way in which he's engaging, and his team in London, the world's greatest city and one of the world's largest cities, is engaging with the Westminster government. And I thought that was really interesting. And in particular with Sajid Javid, the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, who obviously took over from Mr. Hancock, who was pashing without the mistletoe in his office in Whitehall. And it was very good to see, for those unaware, a Labour mayor saying, that he's got very good cross government discussions with a Conservative government, very different colours, very different agenda, but in the interests of getting ourselves out of this mess. He supports, and actually he was saying that he believes the measures that are currently in place at risk of divergence from his central Labour leadership were correct. And I thought that was really interesting. And he did make a tongue-in-cheek remark saying, first time I'll ever sort of agree with Boris Johnson, but I have to say, I think the government on balance have got it right. Yeah, no,
I think that's good. And I think I've noticed that swing as well, because he's not as just adamant about opposition as he used to be. And I think that's good. Fair play to him. My God, Steve, what a difficult job that must be. My goodness me. Do you know what I mean? You just can't please everybody. You can't please anybody. It's amazing, terrible.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think being mayor I think that's probably a great job. The former mayors of London have gone on to big things, Chris. So, maybe there's future for Sadiq Khan in number 10.
Who knows? Yeah.
Our first Asian Prime Minister, that would be fabulous. Well, if you're a Labour, I have to be clear, I'm not a Labour supporter, but in terms of diversity and just showing.
No, I think the bets should be on the Chancellor for that one. But listen, another story. What a shame. Seeing Easyjet now, pre-tax losses 1.1 billion. That's terrible, isn't it?
I'm not sure it's a shame, Chris. I think it's reflective of their inability to climb themselves out of this hole that they got themselves in. We said a few weeks ago that the likes of Ryanair and Wizz Air, sorry, the two that always come up on this show, and we still haven't had a penny from either O'Leary or from Joseph, but I think it's all to do with liquidity and their management of cash. And I think EasyJet were bloated, EasyJet were fat, EasyJet cost base was closer to British Airways than it was to Ryanair or Wizz Air, and they've let themselves go. It's like some I dare sort of use picking up your wife when she's young, but not sort of given too much care and attention after you're married, and 20 years down the line she's a shadow of her former self in a different sense. I think the EasyJet that I know and recognize where I worked and came through my formative years of my career, where I learned a lot about the industry, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now without EasyJet. So it holds a very special place for me here. It's very disappointing to see how bloated and fat EasyJets were, and how EasyJet's CASK, got north of 6 cents. I mean, it just utterly ludicrous. So they took their eye off the ball, and they're paying the price, Chris. So no, I don't have any sympathy for them at all. What I think should happen is that there has to be a material root and branch review of the way in which they manage their business. Interestingly, Stephen Hester started as chairman at Easyjet this week. I suspect that there'll be some management changes over the course of the next few months. Stephen Hester, for those unaware that are choosing still to listen to us at this point into the podcast, we haven't lost any listeners, is the former chairman of the RBS, who was appointed by the government when RBS was bailed out by the taxpayer, and did a massive turnaround there, and therefore he's expected to do some wonderful things at Easyjet. So watch this space, because I suspect in a couple of months' time there'll be less focus on tour operations and Easyjet holidays and stuff that that Johan has brought to the party. I'm not sure that Johan will still be there in 6 months' time. I put 10 quid on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a hefty bet for you, mate, isn't it?
Well, I put money on the Euro Millions. I put 15 quid on Euro Millions last night because it was 150 million pound rollover, and I didn't get a single penny. So I'll have to be tightening my belt this weekend.
Exactly. And what I was going to say, another good bit of news yesterday. I went on the old NHS app there, and all the boosters are uploaded now.
I have my booster on the 16th of December, so I'm looking forward to that. I had my flu jab this week as well, Chris. So,
you're all ready.
Just keep jabbing me in the arm. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, mate, listen, I think that's we've rounded up enough there now for this week. So anybody who wants to think where they are, I mean,
well, I just got one more thing, Chris. I thought might be worth mentioning, which is interestingly, that the UK Air Accident Investigation Branch, the AAIB, released their report this week on a recent TUI incident from Palma into Aberdeen in September. And the aircraft was a matter of a couple hundred feet away from MSA, and the AAIB are probing likely cause to be insufficient recent pilot flying experience. That is a worrying sort of statement that's been picked up by the media and will get some traction, I suspect. But for everybody, I think there will be and rightly so, there should be a focus on the restart. But I think as more and more, as we recover more and bring people back to work, we need to be very cautious and very careful, whether it's in flying or engineering or ground handling or wherever, any safety sensitive, safety critical role. I think we need to be really cautious and very disciplined about the return to work programs that are in place, because the last thing we want to see, in touch with, thankfully there wasn't, thank God there wasn't an accident as a result, but it makes for very interesting reading. So
yeah, no, you're right, 100% right, Steve. And the recency, and also people focusing on what's critical to the business. So there's loads of things that are trained in our industry, but sometimes you've got to pick out the priorities and go for the critical ones. So beautiful, Steve. We started with care, we've ended with care.
Indeed.
Because we dare to care, my friend. We dare to care. Very good. Listen, well done. Lovely to see you again. See you next week. And then we will be, what's next week take to? 19th, which will probably, Christmas is on a Sunday this year, isn't it?
No, I think it's on a Saturday.
Is it? I thought it was Sunday.
I think you're wrong.
Do you?
I do.
Do you? Right. Well, let me have a quick look then, mate, because I've got You're right. It's a Saturday. So we won't be doing a show on the Saturday, but we might squeeze one in perhaps on the 24th. Who knows?
We won't. We will not. I will take him 2 weeks leave. So there'll be no shows between the weekend of the 18th and the first week in January.
So next week.
And if you want to go, you're welcome, but I won't be there.
Thank you very much, Stephen. So next week, the 18th. No, we'll do the 17th. That'll be the last one.
We've got next week is the 11th, Chris. Then there's the 18th. You're a week ahead.
Oh yeah. Of
This is
course
the
I am.
fourth.
Yeah. 2 weeks.
You've got two more weeks. You've got 2 more weeks of me,
2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. And the last one.
and then we'll give our listeners a 2-week break.
Yeah, and the last one will be in festive attire. Right, sir. I hope to see you soon. As always, lovely. Thanks for joining us, and speak soon, Steve. Take care, mate.
Cheerio. Thanks, Chris.